The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Is Jake DeBrusk going to be the best Canucks fourth liner of all time? And I'm not even being pessimistic. I'm just talking about being a contender. Let's do the math.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard it here first. Kyle Bhawan is saying Jake DeBrusk is Louis Eriksson 2.0. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks and also a Canucks writer currently with the Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into today's episode, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks because it is your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, what are you waiting for? Make sure you go subscribe and like this video on YouTube, and on the podcast side, oh baby, go follow us and leave a 5-star review, because we're not here without you and you and you. And we're also not here without the sponsors. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Go download that Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. The vibes are good for your Vancouver Canucks, picking up points in 6 of the first 7 games. But the vibes aren't so good for one of the newest Canucks, Jake DeBrusk. And typical negative Vancouver, focusing on the players who are struggling with the team who is, again, one of the best teams in the NHL right now. But let's talk about it a bit. Jake DeBrusk hasn't quite found his spot on this team yet. Where is the best spot for Jake DeBrusk in this lineup? And is it alongside not Elias Pettersson, not JT Miller, but Pius Suter? What? More on that coming up on today's episode. We'll also get into our GOATs of the week and talk about maybe not so much a preview of the Canucks Hurricanes matchup tonight, but which team should have the better Stanley Cup odds. A jam-packed episode coming up. But before we get to it, let me introduce my co-host, Kyle Bhawan. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm chilling. I'm living. I'm thinking about Jake DeBrusk and his role on the team. And again, I'm not being pessimistic, but for some reason, I feel as if by the time the season ends, we're going to be happy that this guy's a fourth liner. Straight up, whatever that means. Okay. Well, seriously speaking, though, Trevor, what does it mean to be a fourth liner on a contending team? Straight up. You know what I'm saying? I feel as if you're playing like 3 less minutes than some people on the second line, right? Anyways, more on that in a couple minutes. Beggsy and Bhawan at the Don't Doze Art Lab, the place that gives you that West Coast bias. If you're listening to this, do us a favor. Again, the podcast side of things, you could give us a 5-star review. Christmas is coming up in a couple of days. I was right. I've been saying it for a long time, and boom, bam, the holidays are here. And who knows what could happen in our lives if that podcast rating gets a little higher. Well, let's get right into it, okay? Jake DeBrusk, off the jump. Beggsy, answer me. What grade would you give Jake DeBrusk 7 games into his Canucks career? Because I gave him a C. Did I give him a C+? My Canucks grades are in the link in the bio, but I think I gave him a C, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty much the number I was hinging on as well. And look, Jake DeBrusk, again, no goals so far, but he just, again, hasn't looked like he's really found a spot on this team. And, you know, this stat line, like, isn't too bad, to be honest. I mean, he's got 4 assists in 7 games. I wouldn't say he's been bad, but he's lacking chemistry with his line mates. And I think this was potentially a bigger issue and more evident if the rest of the team wasn't scoring, you know, a couple of games into the season when they've lost their first 3 in a row and he's not showing much with Petey and, you know, in game talking, shuffling lines, and DeBrusk still is looking a bit out of place. But we talked about it coming into this season. You know, the biggest flaw with Jake DeBrusk is he is a streaky player, right? A bit Sven Berchi-esque, if you will, except they maybe a little bigger batter and a bit of a higher floor. But the guy tends to score in bunches. He tends to be quiet for long stretches, and this has been a bit of a quiet stretch for Jake DeBrusk. Again, hasn't necessarily been bad, but just doesn't have a spot in this lineup. And Kyle, I know you mentioned to me last night. I know you'll get into it a bit, but you know, the Canucks don't have to force feed Jake DeBrusk a top 6 role. You know, I think the way the MO of this team works is you have to earn every minute of every ice time, of all your ice time. And that's especially the fact when you have a team as deep as Vancouver. And right now, I mean, Höglander and Garland are clicking with Pettersson. DeBrusk, Miller, and Besser aren't necessarily clicking. Do you think it makes sense to start bumping DeBrusk down the lineup and see if he has chemistry with another centerman?
100%. And I think that has to do in large part to Dakota Joshua possibly coming back this week. And it's not to say that this guy gets thrust into the top position, into a top line position right away, right? He's going to have to warm himself in. That being said, somebody who is trigger friendly is Rick Tocchet. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it quick. And it would be quite ironic, right? If Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua, the best buds, the dynamic duo, if ironically they don't play together anymore because both of them are playing on different lines in the top six. Could you see that happening? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe Joshua becomes, Garland's alignment with Pettersson, and Höglander gets bumped up the lineup. There's so many options here. And this whole thing with Jake DeBrusk and his lack of chemistry and his lack of oomph in the lineup so far isn't so much of a conversation to poo-poo on the guy. It's more to line ourselves up with what may happen in April. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We really are, but I'm looking at this lineup. I'm looking at the centermans. I'm looking at the duos, and I'm looking at the lack of chemistry that Jake DeBrusk has. And it ultimately leads me to a position where I'm like, dude, what if he adds to what Bluger and Sherwood are doing on their own line, and he finds some really good chemistry with a really smart player? Because Jake DeBrusk is a smart player too, with Pius Suter. And what type of game do you get out of Pius Suter if he has Jake DeBrusk with him? And I know there's going to be some frowns after, hearing me say that, because Jake DeBrusk signed a 7-year deal, one of the longest deals in Canucks history. Okay, for real. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't say somewhat of a project, because he is what he is, but his place in this organization when it came to where he fit in the lineup was never guaranteed. Straight up. It never was guaranteed. I know he was like Pettersson's best friend and Pettersson's fix, and Alvin and Tocchet were talking about this. Even Jake DeBrusk was talking about it. But if you look at this guy's stats, while he played with one of the best teams in the league that had Marchand, Pastrnak, Krejci, Bergeron, like he still was never a consistent 60-point guy, a 70-point guy. He wasn't that guy. He's a guy that bounces around your lineup and shows up in the playoffs. And because of that, I don't think this is a bad contract, or he'll never live up to his pay grade, because the playoff material does matter in this conversation. But it just leads me to believe that we're actually a stronger team if DeBrusk finds a home in the bottom six. And it's crazy to say that going, 7 games to the season, but at the same time, I'm just, come on, you know the answer. Connor Garland is just way better than we thought, okay? Straight up. That's the answer right here.
Connor Garland, future NHL All-Star. More about that on another episode of Locked On Canucks.
But isn't that it, Trevor? Isn't that it? Like, don't you think that's where I'm coming from? Like, I'm a little content with moving DeBrusk down the lineup, only really because Garland is doing so good. Like, he's replaced that. Who's going to be Pettersson's winger? It's going to be Connor Garland. He's the guy. I'm convinced that this guy's not going to get off the top 6 this year.
And this is why you never believe anything you hear in training camp in the NHL, because what did we hear? That DeBrusk and Pettersson are going to get a long run together, and they're not going to break them up anytime soon. I'm pretty sure they were split up in the very first game of the season. And okay, here's the thing with Jake DeBrusk. I do believe that you got to give him some more time in the top 6, because sure, Garland's bumped up the lineup and he's playing with Pettersson, but Miller and Besser don't have a winger that's going right now either. And I do think it's probably to DeBrusk's benefit to stick him with the same line match for a period of time, unless there's a guy pushing down below that absolutely deserves a shot in the top 6. But, right now you have Heinen and Sherwood playing well with Bluger. Sprong and Baines finding a bottom 6 role. Dakota Joshua's coming back. I think it makes sense to ease him into the lineup in more of a bottom 6 role. So, if I'm Rick Tocchet personally, I'm probably keeping DeBrusk, Miller, and Besser together for a few more games. Look, that line hasn't been fantastic. I know Miller's got 4 points his last 2 games, but that line hasn't been great. They were one of the worst lines against Chicago on the ice for a couple goals against. They were okay against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but again, at this point, I'm like, sure, he could play with Pius Suter on a 4th line, and I don't think that's the end of the world, although in a market like this, he might get some vitriol about it, but I think you keep DeBrusk in the top 6 for the time being. And if someone down below, like a Sherwood or a Joshua, truly pushes the way up the lineup, then it's fine to bump him down. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. We're talking about a good team. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about depth on the wings. And for real, we're talking about Jake DeBrusk. We're not talking about Jake Gensel. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the stats. Like, isn't this guy more of a top 9 player than he is a top 6 player? Real talk. He's good. He's strong. The analytics like him. They love him. He's a smart player. The floor on Jake DeBrusk is what good contenders need. I truly believe that. But at the same time, I got to ask you this question, okay? And this is what makes everything kind of makes sense. And again, this sounds so crazy to talk about Pius Suter and Jake DeBrusk being the next best thing when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks having longevity in the playoffs. And we're October talking about this. I know we're nerding out, but man, oh man, Trevor, answer this question straight up and use a little bit of recency bias, okay? At his best, take Dakota Joshua at his best and take Jake DeBrusk at his best. I don't know if there's much of a upgrade over one or the other. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, I think the options for Tocchet to press the blender button and find chemistry and ultimately get to a place where it's like, oh man, Höglander's playing with Besser and Miller, and Höglander's looked good all season. Like he's playing on another level for real. He's been so good. He's also signed long term too. Then you also got you got the whole Garland Joshua thing, the chemistry. What if you put them with Pettersson? Like that's a possibility.
It is a possibility, and I know you asked me to use recency bias, but when you talk about DeBrusk and Joshua, look, Joshua's had 2 NHL seasons, obviously the last one being his best one with 32 points in 68 games.
Mm-hmm.
Jake DeBrusk, and you talked about him, maybe being more of a top 9 guy. Look, when Jake DeBrusk has played with Bergeron and Marchand in Boston, he was nearly a point a game player. So this guy does have a history of playing well with top guys, and his center for most of last year in Boston was freaking Charlie Coyle, who I know he's a top 6 center in Boston, but on a good team, he's a number 3 center. So Jake DeBrusk, for the most part in his career, and he spent time last season too with like Pavel Zacha and like Matthew Poitras. He did not spend a lot of time, in like a top line role with the Boston Bruins last season. But again, when he's been in that role, he's been close to a point a game player. But again, in Vancouver, he should get that opportunity, and he has gotten it early on. Just the offense hasn't been there. But we're still 7 games in, man. There's lots of time for Jake DeBrusk to figure it out. I would rather see him get more of an extended look with Miller and Besser. But I'm not opposed to your idea, Kyle, sticking this guy on a line with Pius Suter, but let someone else at the bottom push their way up, okay? And I don't know, like you have Sherwood pushing right now for sure, but he also looks great in the third line role. So right now, keep DeBrusk with Miller and Besser if you're asking Coach Beggsy, and let them see if they can create something here, because that line, has the potential to be a pretty damn good line.
They do. And again, this is not coming from a place of hate. This is coming from just a place of being a hockey nerd and looking at the long game here and ultimately not being disappointed if the Canucks are rolling 4 lines and it's like Miller and Besser, Pettersson and Garland, Bluger and Sherwood, because I'm convinced that those two read the game the same way. They play with the same amount of tenacity too. And then Danton Hines, a nice little balance there. And then it's like Pius Suter and Jake DeBrusk. And I'm like, holy you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, that's impressive. Because you got to remember, like Pius Suter in the playoffs in round 1 was arguably our 3rd or 4th best forward. He could have had like 5 or 6 goals in that series. So I feel
he did
as
everything
if
to finish.
but he scored the game winner in game 6, the series clincher, off a feed off of Brock Besser, a nice little finish. I'm just saying that guy has a bit of a ceiling to him, and especially when he's going into a UFA type of season, I think supplying him with more of a consistent winger could bring out the best in him. And again, that raises the floor of the Vancouver Canucks. It's something to nerd out about. And again, I think DeBrusk had 39, 40 points last year with Charlie Coyle. Like, again, I know we're 40. Paying him a lot of money, and he signed for 7 years, and we had these expectations. We went from Jake Guentzel to Jake DeBrusk, and it's like, okay, maybe it'll work. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I look at some of the games that Joshua played last year and his domination with Garland, and I'm like, damn, if they had Pettersson between them, nothing against Bluger, but if they had Pettersson with them, I wonder what type of line that could be. And there were multiple games where Joshua was play driving, and we're only 7 games into the season, but DeBrusk hasn't play driven, he hasn't, not at all. That's just the truth. We've only seen the floor. And again, it's just leading me to believe that there's a chance that Dakota Joshua actually replaces him.
Only time will tell on that front. I think the last point I want to make on this before we get to break is, we talk about DeBrusk potentially playing with Pius Suter. Like, Pius Suter is their 4th line center right now, but he's not a typical 4th line center. Like, I do think, if a team is banged up or if he's on the San Jose Sharks, he's probably a 2nd line center, but he could easily be a 3rd line center on a number of NHL teams. And I think, the fact that, again, center depth in Vancouver looked like a bit of a problem this offseason, but the fact that you got Teddy Bluger look like one of the best damn players on this team, coupled with the fact they have Miller and Pettersson on this team, means that Suter's your 4th line center. So we'll see what the future holds for Jake DeBrusk. Expect a hot streak coming, maybe in November, though. Maybe he's got to, shake the rust off in October and hit the ground running in November. Kyle, hopefully we'll shake off any rust and hit the ground running on the other side when we get to our GOATs of the week, baby. We'll be back after we shout out our friends over at PrizePicks. You know the deal. If you're playing daily fantasy sports, you gotta go to PrizePicks. They get over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks, they've made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. And on PrizePicks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Wow. Sign up today on PrizePicks and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And Connor Garland's been on a hot streak lately. If you think he's going to get more or less than a point tonight, make sure you go place that bet on PrizePicks. Let's go. All right. So make sure you go download that PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Remember, that $50 is guaranteed. You don't even have to win. PrizePicks, it's time to run your game.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks, Trevor Beggs and Kyle Bhawan, doing our thing for you and you and you and you and you and you, giving you that West Coast bias. I'm going to do my best. I'm always trying to do my best. I'm still learning a lot, 31 and a half years old. I thought I'd get that stream running on the other end, right? On that other channel, the link in the bio. Regardless of the fact, if I get that going or not, I'll be here for the post cam, okay? For real. Again, so subscribe to the channel below. Maybe I'll be here. Or maybe I'll be there, but we'll talk to you after this game against the Carolina Hurricanes in just a couple of hours. Beggsy, I want to talk to you about something special, but I want to save it for the end of the episode, okay? The whole Surrey thing, the whole Archie Bains thing. If you guys don't know, Trevor Beggs is like 4% Punjabi, okay? So it really mattered to him when Archie Bains scored that goal. Again, more on that in a couple of minutes. But before we completely move off of the whole DeBrusk thing and get to Trevor's grades of the week, or his GOATs of the week, I'm sorry, how about this? Andrew, one of my favorites, man. Saying, why not put Dakota Joshua with Teddy Bluger and Kiefer Sherwood? Now, I did mention that Danton Heinen, he's just like a good balancing act on that line, okay? Strong along the boards. And if Andrew gets his way, that means Danton Heinen is a fourth liner with Pius Suter. And that could work too. That could really work too. But then I feel as if you have like two very, very, very similar players playing together, and it doesn't ooze chemistry. It just oozes boredom.
Oh, I don't know if it oozes boredom. I think it's exciting, but it lacks some playmaking, if you will.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And because, like, look what you got with Pius Suter. Again, it was against Nashville, but there was a bit of excitement and a bit of a pep in his step in that Nashville series when he was playing a lot with JT Miller and Brock Besser, playing with good players.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo on that too much because I think you get a lot of physicality on that line, and that could lead to odd man rushes if you get guys being too aggressive. But you know, we've talked about it with Sherwood and Bluger before. I mean, and this is the same for a lot of NHL guys, but Sherwood and Bluger in particular were, you know, top scorers in college and, you know, really had to learn a different game at the AHL. Even Kiefer Sherwood was a top scorer in the AHL, you know, clawing and grinding his way up to the NHL. So both Sherwood and Bluger have some playmaking ability. I mean, Sherwood also had, 17 assists along with 10 goals and 27 points in 63 games last season. So he has an ability to dish it out as well. Actually, I think Dakota Joshua, in terms of his puck skills, maybe the least puck skilled of the three, and that's not really a knock on Dak. I just think Bluger and Sherwood are perhaps a bit underrated, at least in the broader NHL picture, maybe not necessarily in Vancouver. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm intrigued by a little Sherwood, Dakota Joshua, Teddy Bluger line, man. I'm down for it.
I'm just so curious to see how this roster looks when Dakota Joshua is back in the lineup, and I'm also curious to see how Trevor graded these players on the Vancouver Canucks. During this feature called what? It's called GOATs of the Week.
Man, oh man, GOATs of the Week, one of my favorite segments. We ran it through the year last year. If you're new to the show, every Monday we look at the 5 best Canucks from the week before. We rank them, and then we tallied up throughout the season. So basically, the number 1 Canuck of the week gets 5 points, number 5 gets 1 point. So on and so forth.
Why did you do 8 last week, though? Why did you do 8? Is it because it was the first week and you just want to give Myers some credit? Okay.
No, well, okay. It's not like giving Myers some credit. It was because we had a week and a half of games. So
okay, sorry, man. Just ask the question, bro. Trevor, man.
Oh my god,
you don't have to talk to me like I'm your 1-year-old. Okay, come on, man.
Man. Okay, so number 5 on the list. Come on, man. And shout out to Kyle Bhawan. pumping this guy in the post game show. But my number 5 go to the week. This is my Surrey bias. This is Archie Baines, baby.
Okay.
Yeah, buddy.
Archie Baines again with his first NHL goal, burying the feed from Daniel Sprong, or the rebound from Daniel Sprong, I should say. Hell of a moment in Vancouver, man. Oh man, Kyle, I wish you and I were in the building for that one, but I know that we were chugging back some Crown Royal from the comfort of our own home there.
I was actually at the sports bar at Rogers Arena.
Oh, nice.
I was trying to get some tickets with Ricky to the game, but again, that's why you guys got to leave us a 5-star review on the podcast side. Okay, those tickets were like $600. It is what it is. The people knew something though. Okay, Archie Baines was going to create a moment, and a Surrey goal scorer who again happens to be a Brown boy. Okay, that means something. Me and Trevor, we know a little bit something about being a Brown boy. Okay, from Surrey. That was cool, and it was, in my opinion, well deserved. Trevor. Okay, so Archie Baines, during the first batch of games this season, again had no points going into that game on Saturday, and some of the rhetoric online on Twitter. I feel like Twitter and X are just the weirdest place to get any analysis for the Canucks, okay? But there was like this blatant hate towards Baines, and like, why is he in the lineup? What does he do? He just gets paid to do cardio. And I'm like, are you guys watching the games? Do you know this guy's like mistake-free, and he also had a stretch of like 2 or 3 games in a row where he was making just clean defensive reads and making it easy for the puck to get out, doing all the little things. Obviously, the biggest thing that's missing in his game is his instinctual play, right? He still seems as if he's the rookie on the team. He's trying to make everyone else happy. You know what I'm saying? Which is a cool thing. But for Archdeep to succeed, he doesn't have to play the game like Danton Heinen. He's got to be a little bit more like himself. He's got to be that guy who led the WHL in scoring. He's got to be that guy that was Connor Bedard's favorite player. No, straight up. So hopefully that goal gets him a little bit of confidence and allows him to settle in and, again, trust his instincts.
Yeah, and I think the last 2 games where he's gotten back into the lineup, you've seen a bit more of a polished Archie Baines. I think, like you said, he was playing a bit too safe and still making mistakes, so it wasn't really the best combination. But I think over the past 2 games, you started to see him jump up into the play a bit more. And again, just rely on those offensive instincts, right? I mean, he bolts up the ice and makes something happen just because he's skating hard towards the net, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think in a lot of his first NHL games, he was too tentative, too slow to get out of the zone. Just not looking comfy in the NHL, but credit to the guy. He finally buries his first one, and there's going to be more to come for Archie Baines here with the Vancouver Canucks. All right, so he, again, I'm a little biased, but he's the number 5 go to the week. Number 4, Connor Garland. Come on, man.
Whoa, number 4?
In the drink right now, man, in Vancouver. Unbelievable. 3 points in 2 games. You can almost credit the guy for getting Elias Pettersson going. And great feed for Pettersson's first this season. Just it's been such a seamless line with Garland, Höglander, and Pettersson, and it almost feels like the 2 wingers elevating Pettersson a bit. But they've had a good stretch of games. I actually don't think the Pittsburgh game was their best game as a line, but against Philly and Chicago, they were rock solid, and nice to see them get rewarded with a bit of offense against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday.
Yeah, not their best game as a line, but individually speaking, I feel as if Connor Garland still had that elite level of playmaking, of a way to find gaps along the boards. The puck was just following this guy and continues to follow this guy. This guy's confidence is on another level. What a player. Again, a big reason why we're talking about Jake DeBrusk on the 4th line is because we found our top 6 winger. It's Connor Garland. It's Connor Garland. It's okay to believe that. It's totally fine. That his trajectory to get to this point has been interesting to say the least, but he's always been a good player. And right now he's playing like a great player. And Trevor, he is the play driver on that line. He is getting 100%. Pettersson going. And a lot of credit has to be given there. And look at this coming from G. Ellis. Okay, I like G. Ellis. Good dude, but he's saying Garland is too small to play with Pettersson. Pettersson has chicken legs, okay, and is scared along the boards. Pettersson needs crashers and bangers on the wing. Okay, first of all, G. Ellis, I like you. I don't know what you put in your coffee. 6 shots of vodka? Pettersson is not scared to play along the boards. He just happens to fall down. You know what I'm saying? He's there all the time. He's finishing checks. Yeah. I forgot to mention that Pettersson had over 100 hits last year. I think I heard that on one of the shows, and I'm like, damn, like, what the hell? This guy, but I could see with the eye test, he's not scared of anything. And Garland, come on, man. He may be small, but again, size don't matter, bro. Size don't matter. And I say this every time, and I say it to my girl all the time too, and luckily she understands, and it's a beautiful thing. And Garland, man, just proving my point. Size doesn't matter.
Yeah, thankfully, our wives believe that size doesn't matter as well. And it doesn't matter with Connor Garland. It doesn't matter that he's the smallest forward in the NHL. The guy rarely loses a puck battle. And PD, he does have a propensity to get knocked down a lot, but that's because he's in the battles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know, maybe he needs to work on his balance and timing a bit, but Garland, the guy almost never gets knocked down.
He was number one on my list, bro. Number one or number two, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what I got for the rest of my list here. So number three, I got Kevin Lankinen. Picked up wins in both games this week. He's firmly taken over the starter's role. I mean, Archer's who? When is the last time Sheila played a game? It's been a while. It was against the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 3 of the season. So Lankinen has been in the net for all 4 of the Canucks wins here on their winning streak. I don't think he had to be spectacular, but he had to make some spectacular saves against both the Blackhawks and the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday, even though the Pittsburgh Penguins kind of fell apart early in the second period there. But go ahead.
Sorry, they fell apart, but it could have been 3-0 easily. And Lankinen has this ability to just make timely saves.
Yeah.
When the Canucks defense breaks down, and when you have Darnay, Susie, and Myers playing the way that they're playing defensively, and that's completely inconsistent, like those breakdowns are going to happen. And Lankinen he's been a treat, and he's starting again tonight. Like, he's the guy.
And he deserves it, man. He deserves it. The guy just doesn't lose. Knock on wood, because some tough tests coming up against Carolina and New Jersey. More about that on the other side. Okay, let's wrap up with the last 2 goats of the week. Number 2, I got Quinn Hughes, baby. Okay. Again, this is a bit of the Connor McDavid going effect. I think sometimes we maybe get bored or just forget how good Quinn Hughes actually is, but he was the only Canuck last week to be on the ice for 4 even strength goals, 4 and 0 even strength goals against. Meanwhile, Tyler Myers and Carson Soucy on the ice for 4 even strength goals each over the last 2 games. Not a great run for them, but Quinn Hughes, so dynamic with the puck, picks up a couple more apples this week, and again, just doesn't get scored on when he's on the ice. And I think that's a really important thing that sometimes we forget about here in Vancouver.
Yeah, we're blessed. Yo, bro, again, just look at how bad Carson Soucy is playing. Look at how inconsistent Tyler Myers and Vincent Darnay have been defensively. And we're blessed to have Philip Hronek, Eric Brandstrom, and especially Quinn Hughes. And, on that note, I hope number 1 is Eric Brandstrom. I don't know if that's the case, but Quinn Hughes just gave him a cosign. And that's after Rick Tocchet gave him a cosign too. So Eric Brandstrom is sticking around. Yeah,
Eric Brandstrom. Maybe I'll give my Eric Brandstrom rationale on the other side, but he is not my number 1 go to the week. It is Kiefer the Reefer 420 Sherwood, baby. Let's go. 3 points in the last 2 games. I think he's racked up about 989 hits in the last 2 games.
Okay.
The guy is an absolute force out there. He's found a home on that third line. And Kyle, I honestly think if he keeps this up, he will be pushing for minutes higher up the lineup.
Wow.
And at the expense of someone like Jake DeBrusk.
But why though? Like, why not just have him? Right? Why does that always happen with Bluger, man? It's like, dude, just let Bluger have somebody too, man, because Bluger's dynamic. Yo, this guy's good, bro. This guy's feeling himself, and it's the same argument that I have with Pius Suter too. It's like, I know those guys are safe players, Bluger and Suter, but what if you give them some help? Doesn't that just like raise the floor of this team? Like when you want to roll 4 lines and you have like chemistry throughout your lineup, isn't that more beneficial than promoting a guy? Like, I don't know. Just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think potentially. I think the Canucks have enough good wingers where you're not too worried about that. Like, what if DeBrusk does slip down the lineup? What if Bluger's playing with Joshua and Heinen? Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. But I do think, and you see this in Vancouver, rewarding guys that are doing the most is a fine strategy. And I think Rick Tocchet will do that, especially if Kiefer Sherwood continues to play the way he's playing. All right, we're almost at the half-hour mark, but a couple of minutes to go here on Locked On Canucks. We'll be back on the other side to talk about. I want to talk about this. Who should have the better cup odds between the Canucks and the Hurricanes? Again, Canucks playing Carolina tonight at Rogers Arena. So we'll talk about that on the other side after we shout out our friends over at FanDuel. All right, you know the deal, baby, okay? Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, guess what? They give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Be people, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks, okay, ahead of their game. Game number 8, Diwali night. Trevor Beggs, you celebrating Diwali tonight or what, man? You're from Surrey. You should do that, okay? Come on. It is what it is. All right? Happy Diwali, everybody. I actually think Diwali is like next week or something. If my math is
next
correct.
week. Yeah,
If my Hinduism is right, okay? Where am I going with this? Okay, one love to the Don't Doze Art Lab for, again, giving us the space to allow us to give you and you and you and you and you and you that West Coast bias. Do us all a favor. If you're enjoying the episode today, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I think we have like 60% of our returning listeners not subscribed to the channel. I don't know if it's because they don't like white people, Trevor. Straight up.
That's got to be what it is, or I don't know. I'm sure I've had a bad take at some point that's turned people off, but once in a while I'm right about things too. And Kyle, tell me I'm right about this. The Canucks should have better Stanley Cup odds than the Carolina Hurricanes.
Damn. I know, bro. Come on, Trevor. Relax, buddy. Okay, we're the Vancouver Canucks. We've been good for 13 months. Okay, let's not go there. If anything, it's the same based on Carolina's inability to quote unquote capitalize in the moment. That being said, they got to an Eastern Conference Finals a couple years ago. Trevor, I'm not there yet with the Vancouver Canucks. I believe I'm delusional. We're gonna win the cup this year. Blah blah blah. But I gotta give a bit of respect to Carolina. Okay, maybe I'm playing it safe, but what do you think?
Look, I just look right now this Vancouver Canucks team, and I do think they have the deepest, one of the deepest, if not the deepest, forward group in the NHL. I really believe in Adam Foote to get the most out of this defense, and Kevin Lankton's been great, and I also just believe in Thatcher Demko to be that guy once he returns to action. Because again, there's no rush to bring Thatcher Demko back right now. I look at Carolina, and look, there's pieces there, and they got a great structure and a great system in place. But are they ready to get over the hump? I would argue that the Canucks are better well positioned to compete for a Stanley Cup right now. And call me biased because this is the home of the West Coast bias. But look, man, and I mentioned this before, our friends over at FanDuel, again, here are the Stanley Cup odds right now. Carolina tied for the 7th best cup odds with the Vegas Golden Knights. Edmonton, New Jersey, Dallas, Florida, Colorado, and New York are the teams with better odds. The Canucks, man, oh man, they're tied. This is unbelievable, man. They're tied for the 14th best odds of winning the Stanley Cup, according to FanDuel, along with the Los Angeles Kings and the Minnesota Wild. That's unbelievable stuff, man. So again, FanDuel, Dylan the Canucks, saying that they're basically a mid-team. And I'm just saying, man, I think the Canucks are one of probably the 5 best teams in the NHL right now. Carolina's up there. Ooh. I think these two teams are probably around the same Stanley Cup odds, but if I'm a betting man, I'm betting on Vancouver over Carolina to bring home a Stanley Cup this season.
The Vancouver Canucks are a top 5 team based on the fact that they have points in 6 of their first 7 games and beaten the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Philadelphia Flyers.
Oh I'm talking about last season, man, and the Florida Panthers, the reigning Stanley Cup champs. But I'm talking about last season too, and the fact that you largely have a lot of the same guys together, at least the same core together, and you have the pillars in place. You have your number 1 center, JT Miller, and Elias Pettersson too. You got Quinn Hughes, the best defenseman in the NHL. You got great structure and you got good goaltending. So I think there's a lot of things like with the Vancouver. And look, the Carolina Hurricanes also have good structure. They also have depth, although I question their forward depth a bit more than the Canucks. And I question their goaltending a bit as well. I mean, Freddie Anderson's been good when he's been healthy. Peter Kochikov has been good in stretches. But both guys have battled with health problems. And another recalled Spencer Martin today as well. So I think Carolina has more questions than Vancouver, but they're a damn good hockey team. I mean, they're 5-2 to start the season, and they've won their last 3 games in a row here over the Oilers, Flames, and Kraken.
There you go, man. They've been some pretty decent competition. It's one of those things again, Trevor. I'm taking it one game at a time. When it's that whole conversation about comparing the Canucks to other teams who are like perennial playoff teams. You know what I'm saying? But I'll still stay delusional and smoke that West Coast bias and think that the Vancouver Canucks, again, with the best forward group in team history, have a good chance to do big things. But Trevor, I will say, I know a big reason why the Canucks are not betting favorites, and I don't think it has a lot to do with Demko. I think it has actually more to do with the book on Pettersson. I think there's like this narrative that some people are believing that he's actually washed up and he's the next Jonathan Huberdeau. No, straight up. Because like, how are you a sports book and saying the Canucks are like towards what, like the end of the first half of the league when it comes to being a cup favorite, when they have 2 number 1 centers and a Norris Trophy winner?
Yeah, I think, and kudos to FanDuel. We appreciate you supporting the show. I think this has more to do with the fact that it's an American sports book. And, you see those ads on TV sometimes about like, oh, bet in Canada on a Canadian sports book. Those guys know hockey better, so they might not give you as good of odds as a place like FanDuel. And I think that's largely what it boils down to be honest with you.
Okay, it's an American thing. America's
number one sport.
America loves hockey. Anyways, let's round out this episode with a little bit of Surrey talk, okay? Trevor, take it away. Then end off the episode. We're already at the 35-minute mark. Who knows what's going to happen after this? We're going to get a call from the ups, but we're here for the people, okay? We're here for that West Coast bias, our neighbors. On that note, Surrey is very friendly to us. It is our neighborhood, and for the right reasons, Surrey was appreciated, Surrey was looked at with a lot of light, and that has a lot to do with R.G. Baines. It has a lot to do with Noah Juleson too. Like he's on the team. He's born in Surrey doing his thing, but R.G. Baines, he's kind of like one of the faces of Surrey now. I mean, if you're looking like that, you're a Baines, you're playing for the Vancouver Canucks, and you score a goal on Hockey Night in Canada. That's like so cool. And to get cosigns from not only Rick Tocchet and not only Elias Pettersson, but bro, Henrik and Daniel Sedin are going up to this guy and saying, yo, tonight, you're going to score a goal. Like, those are the two best players in franchise history. There is a big lane here for R.G. Baines to be one of the faces of the Vancouver Canucks. And I know that sounds crazy, but he's getting appreciated everywhere. Before the fans, like the legends on the team are doing that. He has a good floor to him. I think the ceiling is not seen yet, and it's going to take some time for him to get there. But there's, again, a path here for R.G. Baines to really change the narrative of Surrey, or help change it.
Yeah, man. I love where you're going with this. And look at the ovation this guy got at Rogers Arena. Like, it's not for every guy's first NHL goal where you get a standing ovation from the crowd. And look, I mean, God, you alluded to it, but the Punjabi community here in Surrey, even like the Hindi community too, the Muslim community, there's so many guys, so many great hockey fans in the city. Actually, some of the most knowledgeable hockey fans I know are Hindi, Muslim, and Punjabi. Most of my white friends don't watch hockey, man. Figure that one out, man. That's just
because we love hockey. I don't know if you know this, but hockey was invented in India. That's what, or
yeah,
Fiji
exactly,
or something. I don't know. That's what I heard.
Yeah, 100%. And look, again, there's so much love and appreciation for R.G. Baines in the city of Surrey and this province that, look, and this guy's always had the determination, the work ethic to get better and better. And one of the things that I love that he said in his post-game interview on Hockey in Canada was that I want to go the extra mile for the people who believe in me, right? It's not about proving his doubters wrong. It's about, working hard for the people who believe in him. And I thought that was a really nice way and an eloquent way, kind of low key of saying that, he's not done yet.
Well, dude, that's the way you got to move in general, not if you're a professional athlete, but just in life, man. You got to follow the love. I think even for you and I, doing this, and we're a bit older, so it doesn't, like, the comments and like the hate that we get and like the bad ratings sometimes on the podcast side, it doesn't get to us because we're a bit older. But at the end of the day, if we were just focused on that and some of the pessimism and the doubt over the people who do believe in you, you're doing this whole life thing backwards. Okay. Always follow the love. It is so much more peaceful. And when you're at peace, you're actually closer to being fluid. And when you're being fluid, tapping into your instincts, you're the best version of yourself. And again, I hope that goal allows Baines to just be more of himself, because he is not Danton Heinen. He is Connor Bedard's favorite player, okay? And Henrik and Daniel's favorite player, too. Anyways, Locked On Canucks. That was another episode. Kyle Bhawan, Trevor Beggs from Surrey, British Columbia. I was actually born in, Burnaby, the hospital, but I grew up in Surrey, okay? Straight up. I don't know, like, did my parents not trust the Surrey Memorial Hospital? Like, I don't know. Like, was that a thing in 1993? I don't know. End of the day, Surrey's home. I love Surrey. We're going to change the order there. R.G. Baines is already doing it. Can't wait to do more for that community. And my neighbors, again, if you're not looking after your neighbors, how are you going to look after the world? And I truly do believe that you and you and you and you and I and you and you and you and you again have to look after the world, okay? It's our effing responsibility, okay? Straight up. Go Canucks, go. Again, hit the like button. Leave us a 5-star rating on the podcast side of things. The holidays are coming up. Beggsy and Bhawan. We celebrate Christmas and Diwali. It would mean a lot. Beggsy, sign us out.
Hey, shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, first-time listeners, new subscribers, and those of you who joined us on the live show on YouTube. Whenever you're listening, wherever you're listening, we appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. One more note, quick. I saw something in the comments about the Canucks sweeping the Hurricanes last season. They were asking if they did, and that is true. The Canucks beat the Hurricanes 4-3 at Rogers Arena in December and 3-2 on the road in February. At the last home game against the Hurricanes in December, Elias Pettersson with the game winner. So let's go, Petey. Time for back-to-back goals
I
here.
think Lindholm had 2 goals too, though. The other
he had 2 goals in the game in Carolina, but the game at Rogers
okay.
Arena, Petey had the game winner with the goal in the third period. So again, Petey, let's go, baby. Back-to-back goals coming for Elias Pettersson. And back-to-back days, we're giving you an episode because it's Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. We'll be back tomorrow. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs, that guy's Kyle Bound, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.